Hello, everyone. This is Stefania Viscusi from Technology Marketing Corporation, and welcome to today's webinar titled Improve the Customer Journey, Analytics is Key, sponsored by BroadSoft. Can your business take customers to the next level? That's the goal, at least, for so many businesses wanting to win in today's competitive landscape. How do you not only keep customers happy and satisfied, but take their journey to the next level to ensure they stick around and maybe even become an ambassador for you? Thanks to advancements in analytics today, that is possible. Contact centers are using customer journey analytics to help them understand how to optimize omni-channel experiences and drive conversion rates. During today's webinar, we'll discuss the emerging importance of analytics for optimizing omni-channel customer journeys, how the data locked in your contact center systems can improve customer care, the impact of IoT on the contact center, and how analytics can improve sales processes, customer retention rates, first call resolutions, and conversion rates. At this time, we'd like to pause for a poll question for our audience. Our question is, when are you planning to adopt a cloud-based contact center? Your options are, I use one today, in 3 to 6 months, in 6 to 12 months, 12 or more months, not planned, or do not know. And while our audience takes a minute to respond to that, just a few housekeeping items. Our presenters will be answering questions during a Q&A session that will follow our presentation. I encourage you to submit those questions to us using the interface on your PC at any time, either during the actual Q&A or as they arise during our presentation. We'll get to as many of your questions as we can. Any that we're unable to get to will be archived, and I know our presenters will be happy to answer them offline following the event. Also, the event is going to be archived, so each of you will be receiving information on how you can access the webinar tomorrow, so you can follow up on anything you might have missed or pass the information on to your colleagues. Let's take a look at those poll results. Okay, it looks like 23.1% responded, I use one today. No one responded 3 to 6 months. 7.7% responded 6 to 12 months. 15.4% responded 12 or more months, and 15.4% responded not planned. Please join me now in welcoming our presenters on today's call. Sheila McGee-Smith is the founder and principal analyst at McGee-Smith Analytics. As a strategic consultant, Sheila focuses on new product and development, sales strategy products, market research, and competitive assessment for contact center and enterprise communications space. We are also joined today by Arnab Mishra, Vice President at BroadSoft Contact Center. Arnab has over 20 years of leadership experience and is responsible for the product management, marketing, engineering, customer success, alliances, and functions for BroadSoft Contact Center. With that, Sheila, let's go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Stefania, and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I want to reflect for a moment on the poll results. If I remember correctly, it went by quickly, about a third of you said that you are using one today, that you're using cloud-based contact center. About a third said that they didn't know when they might move to cloud contact center. Maybe this kind of event is what you're doing to gather information. And then another third were in that process somewhere of moving to cloud-based contact center. Now, since our session today is about the customer journey and analytics, you might wonder what the key or why we asked that question about cloud-based contact center. And what I think we're going to find through my conversation and through Arnab from BroadSoft is that cloud can play a very key role in enabling companies to gather and analyze the data that makes for richer customer journeys. And so that's why we wanted to get a sense of what the audience looked like. So I'm going to talk a little bit about trends, highlighting obviously analytics, and then I'll turn it over to Arnab for a deeper dive on the analytics side of our conversation. So customer journey, the term is being kicked around, and what we're finding, and I'm going to present some data that shows this, even customers that call the contact center today likely started that journey on the web or on their mobile phones. Picking up the phone and calling a company to place an order to resolve a customer service issue is rarely the first choice of consumers anymore. Do your contact center policies and procedures recognize that? I mean, are you equipping agents with the knowledge of other customer interactions that may have happened 2 minutes ago, 3 days ago, last month? that's a little bit about what we'll be talking about here. How do we get that information to agents, and how do we use that information that we have about customers to serve them better? So this is data from a company that is a BroadSoft partner, but also works with a number of other vendors, Dimension Data. For the last 20 years, in fact, 2017 will be their 20th annual benchmarking report, they've been benchmarking the call center and then the contact center market in terms of the technologies that are used in contact centers. The nice thing about the Dimension Data benchmarking report is that it's global data. And it's also data from companies who come back year after year sometimes and update information. So what is the 2016 data showing us? So if you just look at that top line, right, the question asked here is what percentage of interactions are being handled by the channels offered to your customers? So that was a question asked to contact center management. And the first one there is telephone. You know, no one is saying telephone is going away, even with our digital transformation. But if you look at the change year over year from 2015 to 2016, the decline of just about 9% in the percent of interactions that are telephone versus something else, okay? Email, probably best, seen as flat. But everything else, all those other measures that are in green there, rising from 2015 to 2016. And overall, the answer is that digital channels are growing while we see shrinking in the telephone. The other thing that I think this data helps really make the point is that there's no one channel that's the magic bullet, right? It's not chat. Yes, chat is increasing in terms of the proportion of interactions. It's not social media, which again is increasing. I think what this table shows us is that it is incumbent upon companies to offer all of the digital channels, because all of those channels are ones that customers do want to use and they want made available for them. So what services are being supported by those same contact centers, right? And as we see here, telephone is handled by, just about 100%, which interesting that it's not 100%, right? Because we're just beginning to see through digital transformation, companies starting contact centers and choosing not to have a voice channel, to have only email, to have only web. But that's, as you can see, a small percentage. Email is now being supported in 90% of contact centers. Obviously, IVR is very strong. Website is handled. 50% now handling social media. And the rest here, some of the ones that are sort of newer and growing, kiosks, mobile applications. I think that one is so key, tying the mobile application of a company to the contact center. And what's happening is that, the predictions are coming true that by the end of 2016, the proportion of interactions handled by voice will slide below 50-50. That other types of interactions will surpass voice if you combine them all. But again, the point that I made a moment ago, an average of 9 channels being used by 2017 by the respondents in this survey. So the last question I want to talk about from the Dimension Data survey is, a question was asked, what are the top 3 things that these respondents thought would reshape the contact center and customer experience over the next 5 years? And so clear, customer analytics, number 1. In corresponding data in the survey, 79% of companies say they don't really have a great picture of analytics across all of the channels. And so analytics is, number 1, it was number 1 for 2016, but it was also number 1 in 2015 and has been in the top 5 for a few years now. And I think one of the reasons is that we think that analytics is the answer, but we're not quite sure what that means and how we accomplish bringing better analytics into our business. But the need to do so is very clear. This is data from a consulting group that does survey work, again, has been doing it for many years out of the University of Michigan. And you may have seen the data from the American Consumer Satisfaction Index. And it studies by industry how satisfied consumers are with contact centers. And this data from 2015 I find very striking because it says, when it comes to self-service, when it comes to telephone interactions, we as an industry, as a business contact center, are doing a pretty good job with first call resolution. But when it comes to the newer channels, when it comes to chat or comes to email, we're not doing as good a job. And I think one of the reasons is, with IVR self-service and even web, with calls on the phone, we've been doing those long enough that we have built good processes for them. And I think as companies have added chat, have added email, often those were added not integrated into the contact center, sometimes even done by a third party, and the customer suffers in terms of the ability to do first call resolution. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that situation online with a web chat where you're interacting with an agent and it's often, a third party, somebody who's just there for sales and not for support. And that's why you get these kinds of statistics. So what do we mean when we talk about analytics and what it can do? Okay. So one type of analytics is for proactive customer care. Customers only call into contact centers for two reasons, broadly: to get some information, to get a problem resolved, right? To buy something, get some information about something they want to buy, to resolve a problem. So one of the challenges we have in the contact center is how can we handle those calls proactively and effectively in a way that replaces inbound interactions and satisfies the customer at the same time. And often that's because we have data that the customer needs that we can push out that we're not necessarily pushing out today. And that, again, requires analytics, an ability to look at the data, compare it to the customers have to have that information, and then getting that information out in an efficient way. This is interesting data that was published in the Harvard Business Review in late 2015. And what it shows is that by monitoring a prospect's digital behavior, so somebody's on your website, software algorithms today, used in analytics, can predict intent of that customer to purchase before the prospect has even filled out a form, allowing you to reach out to that customer and to proactively communicate with them, like with a chat, even before they have gotten to the point of asking for it. And the reason that's so important is this notion of the half-life of an online lead. While a customer is there, while they're on your site, that's when you want to capture them. That's when you have seconds, literally, to close that customer and engage that customer with you. What this is showing is in that first hour, the amount of attention and the probability of closing that lead drops so dramatically, from 80 to 20%. So it's interesting. Greta Garbo, I never said I want to be alone. I only said I want to be left alone, and there is a difference. And the difference here that we're talking about is that sometimes the best thing that you can do for a customer is to just leave them alone, to just allow to be able to have analytics that watch their behavior on your website, that keep track, and then using predictive algorithms say, this customer is heading toward a purchase. And all we're going to do by popping a chat in their face is annoy them. So instead, we'll just let the customer continue on their path. There's other ways of looking at those analytics and saying, this customer needs help. This customer is having issues. This customer is jumping around. This is the time to bring in that preemptive chat and say, is there something we can help you with, right? So I like to think that, I like to put this slide in the deck about Greta Garbo because leaving a customer alone is also a choice. Allowing them to do what they want to do without bothering them. It's almost like the equivalent of walking into a retail store and being asked right away, can I help you, can I help you, can I help you, when that's not what you're looking for. You're looking to browse, you're looking to do what you want to do. And I think the same can be true in the contact center, in what we do. So when I think about analytics and the customer journey, there are sort of two elements of that. One is preemptive analytics. What can I offer the customer before they even realize the need? Because based on their behavior, based on what I know about them, this is what I have a really good sense they are coming to my website for. And as we can see from the benchmarking data, companies like you, like those of you on this call today, understand that there is something that can be done, but not quite sure how to get from where they are today to that. The other kind of analytics, predictive analytics. Based on data that you have, as was said at the top of the call, based on information that you have in your contact center, if it can be combined and analyzed in real time in an effective way, you can have actions in place. If these trends continue, what could happen if the customer does this next? What should we be ready for? What is the next best action that we should take with this customer? And what is the best possible outcome that we can get if we take certain steps, if we do certain things? So I'm going to turn it over to Arnab now, and he's going to take that next step and say, what are some of the things that BroadSoft can offer? What are some of the ways that analytics can be brought into the contact center? Arnab?
Great. Thank you, Sheila. So I'm going to build on Sheila's comments and really focus on the challenges that we as a software provider see our customers face, how we help them address these challenges, and then dive a little bit into some of the use cases and a case study around how we see analytics getting used for the benefit of contact centers and their end customers. So, as Sheila so well described, the data challenge that we see today is really the result of two phenomena. One is that communications between consumers and contact centers are highly fragmented today. The days of someone either going to a physical location or placing a phone call, those are behind us, and there are multiple different channels and avenues that a customer may use to interact with an enterprise. And those different venues may actually span inside and outside of the contact center as they journey from the beginning of their journey through the end until they get their issue resolved. The other issue that we see a lot of is that there are actually multiple applications and systems that are involved across these channels. And the proliferation of these systems happens because of different needs the enterprise has. It may happen because the enterprise is using third parties to help them with their customer service activities, be they outsourcers or other kinds of entities. It may be because they've custom-built applications specific to themselves. And the interesting thing about these is all of these applications collect data, and they're all collecting data specific to to their purpose in life. And so there's this sea of data that's out there, but today it's siloed, it's confined within these applications. And in many cases, this challenge is exacerbated by the fact that these different applications collect data at very different levels. Some will collect data at sort of a very granular event level. Other ones will collect data at a transactional level. Some will collect data at an interaction level. And then they store this data in variable data structures. So some of them are sitting on very standard kind of RDBMS kind of data stores. Others are more modern, looking at web logs and things of that nature. And so you have this world where I think the good news from a contact center perspective is that there's a lot of data out there. That data is being collected, but today it's trapped within the applications that are serving the end customer, and then within those applications, how they've been designed is extremely variable and varies from one application to another. So what we do is, when we engage with our customers, there's a couple of things that we really focus on. The first thing is really getting the customer to identify and understand that there is this hidden asset inside every contact center around the data it already has, and whether that's agent data, customer data, interaction data, transactional data, whatever it is, there's typically, in every customer we talk to, there's a lot of this data sitting around in the applications that are already deployed. The second thing that we talk about is really shifting and augmenting the focus of the contact center from being operationally and activity focused to one where they focus on business outcomes. And what we mean by that is if you talk to many contact center managers, they get really focused on things like average speed of answer, average handle time, things like that. And part of the reason why is obviously running an efficient contact center is very important. There's a lot of cost in contact centers, and you want to make sure you're doing the best you can with the assets you have in place. But the other reason why those metrics become important is because those are the ones that are easy to measure within the silos of these different applications. But the reality is that contact centers are really there to deliver great customer experiences and to help the customer retain their end customers, to help grow the customer base. And so we spend a lot of time working with our customers to help them think through an expanded set of KPIs that they can use to manage and monitor and measure their contact center. So it could be everything from revenue per call. It could be retention rates. It could be cross-sell and upsell rates. It could be first contact resolutions. Depending on the business process the contact center is involved in, these types of metrics end up becoming very valuable metrics that they can use to manage the contact center. But in order to really effectively calculate those metrics, there's a lot of analytics work that has to happen in order to bring all of that data together. So the way that we work with our customers is through a fairly hardened process that we have now that we call our 4 I's: information, insight, intelligence, and improvement. And I'll walk through each one of these. So the first thing we have to do, and then we work with our customers to do, is really to pull together the information the data that they already have. And so we've invested in a number of different technologies that are able to ingest data, link that data together, and I'll talk about linking here in a second. And we have a repository in which we house this data. And the repository that we've chosen is a very flexible repository that can take in structured and unstructured data and take in all the variable different data sources at the different levels at which they're produced and bring those in. The second thing we do is enable our customers to generate insights from this data. And in many cases, our customers they already have insights about their contact center. They're just looking for ways to validate those insights. And so our tool, we have a very powerful descriptive analytics tool that allows them to go into this data, look at the data from an end user perspective, and validate the insights they already have, and create new insights from the data from the data that's already there. Based on that, we work with our customers to then take those insights and to use them to model future behaviors. And so to really sit there and help them predict, an agent's propensity to perform on one side and a customer's propensity to behave on the other side. And to leverage those insights then to actually drive improvement in their contact centers. And that improvement, again, ties back to the outcomes that the contact center wants to generate. So whether it's to sell more, retain more, solve customer issues more quickly, deliver higher customer satisfaction, we use our predictive models to actually in real time, through a rules engine, drive improvements in how the contact center manages customer interactions to improve those KPIs that the contact center has identified as being critical to their success. The key to a lot of what we do is really around this unification of data across systems. And so, we have spent a lot of time and effort in thinking through all of the different, data sources that can come into a contact center, and then thinking through how you link that together to create a cohesive data repository that really maps a customer's experience within an interaction as well as a customer's experience across interactions as they're conducting a journey from start to finish, for a specific issue or through the lifetime of that customer. The way we've done this is we've looked at the different data sources and we've used the data itself to create linking keys that allow us to link data together across these different systems in such a way that you can then do end-user analytics, be they descriptive or predictive analytics, to actually derive insights and areas where you can improve the overall customer experience. So from a technology perspective, our application stack is one where at the bottom it's the different data sources that we're pulling together to create the kind of source material for the analytics. We've built a real-time activity and workflow data integration engine where we pull data together into a NoSQL data store that can easily hold structured and unstructured data. On top of that, we've built an engine that allows users to easily analyze the data sitting in the repository. One of the advantages of linking the data together is that it enables an end user who's not highly technical to actually drive these analytics themselves. If you look at the standard BI world, one of the sort of challenges in that world is data can sit in a single warehouse in a single repository, but it's up to the user to join that data through joins and cubes and things of that nature. And generally, the user has to be fairly technical and have a really good understanding of the underlying data repository in order to do that work. In our world, because we pre-link the data as it's coming into the data repository, we simplify that step. And so what that means is, a supervisor, a contact center manager, a line of business owner can actually use our applications to create these analytics and these visualizations that they need. So on top of this engine and on top of the integration layer, we have a set of applications. One is a descriptive analytics application, which provides dashboards, visualization. It does both real-time analytics, real-time dashboards, as well as long-tailed historical data analytics on large data sets. We have a set of predictive analytics tools and models that users can use to predict agent propensity to perform and a customer's propensity to behave. And then lastly, we have a rules-driven decision engine that takes our predictions and actually implements them in the real world. So those decisions could be things like a routing decision, and I'll talk about that. It could be a script pop decision. It could be tailoring a workflow in terms of what messages are played, all driven based on the analytics and the predictions that we've made around which types of workflows work best for which types of customers. And then lastly, the entire stack of technology is fully API'd, delivered from the cloud. And so we have RESTful APIs, numerous APIs where enterprises or application developers can build applications on top of what we already have. They can use the APIs to just extract data, linked data from the repository. They can use the workflow analysis and the computational engine through the APIs, and they can also pull sort of visualizations directly through the APIs. So very robust from that perspective. We have a number of customers that are looking at these APIs and leveraging these APIs for projects above and beyond some of the things they're doing directly in the contact center. So how do analytics deliver better customer journeys? And so we think about it sort of in a few different ways. So on the customer side, by leveraging the analytics that we provide, you can start differentiating how you treat customers based on their status or their value. So status could be things like they're a new customer, they're an existing customer, maybe this existing customer who's out of contract, they're a customer that maybe is delinquent on their bill, things like that. And you can use that data in real time based on who they are and their status with you as a customer and deliver a tailored workflow to them or connect them to the appropriate answering resource that's right for them given their status. The other is customer value. So actually prioritizing customers based on their lifetime value, based on their propensity to buy more, based on their past purchase history, based on their propensity to churn, because maybe there's a set of activities that we're seeing in their behavior that would lead us to believe that they're a high propensity to churn. And so based on that, you can give them, again, a tailored workflow that is there to fit their needs and is there to enable the contact center to actually deliver on a KPI like churn reduction or cross-sell upsell rates. On the agent side, we have a number of things that we do to allow the contact center to look at agent performance and to actually manage agent performance and predict how agents will perform in the future. The standard model in the contact center has historically been what they call a skills-based model. And there is a bit of a leap of faith in the skills-based model in the sense that typically the way skills are assigned to agents are, the process typically is something like an agent comes in, they go through some training, they take a test, and based on that test, they get assigned a skill. And so the assumption is that whatever that performance was, outside of the contact center on that test is going to be the performance that you'll see on a day-to-day basis when they're actually, handling customer interactions. Some cases that's true, but in many cases that correlation breaks apart. And so what we say is you should actually look at the actual performance of an agent day to day for different customer types, for different interaction types, and use that data to actually predict how they'll perform in the future, and frankly use it as a source material for how you manage that agent population moving forward. The other things that we see are things like abandoned caller prioritization, last agent routing. These are more data-driven features of our solution set. Abandoned caller prioritization is fairly simple. It's something that our customers use a lot, which is if a caller comes in and they abandon in a queue, and if they call back again in a specific period of time, give them a different workflow. Don't make them sit in the same queue again. Maybe play them a tailored message. And the reason and the way we do this is leveraging our real-time analytics engine, where we actually keep a data set, let's say, of all callers that have abandoned, the queues that they've abandoned in, and then we use our decision engine that when that call comes in, the underlying contact center platform appeals to the decision engine and says, hey, has this caller abandoned recently? And if they have, tell me what I should do with them. Last agent routing is another example of this type of behavior where an agent can maybe specify in their agent desktop, please route this customer back to me if they come back into the contact center for this same issue. It could be a rule that's set on the queue. And what it allows for is a continuity of discussion between the agent and the customer. And that, in many cases, leads to better outcomes, leads to a better customer relationship. The important thing to highlight here is as you look at all these features and these capabilities we're talking about, these are all easily configurable things in our system, leveraging the UIs that we provide to our end users. Other vendors may talk about these things, but in many cases there's some fairly heavy professional services required in order to do these things. Because we've thought about our application as being sort of an analytics-centric application, these things all become capabilities that spawn out of the underlying analytics that we've built. So let me end this part of the discussion with a case study. So one of our customers is a leading e-commerce company. They put a lot of advertising out into the world, be it in the form of radio, print, television, digital, and the response to that advertising comes into the contact center in many cases and then onto their website. And so they were very interested in trying to figure out how they drive more revenue and more sales conversions in their contact center, leveraging our analytics. So prior to engaging with us, they were initially routing sort of sales and service calls equally to a common pool of agents using sort of a traditional longest available agent strategy. What we did is we came in and we actually looked at their agent population. We looked at the performance of the agents from a sales perspective in their agent population, and we ranked their agents based on that population. In order to do that effectively, we had to bring together data across multiple systems. They had, interaction data sitting in a contact center platform. They had sales data sitting in a CRM application. And so we pulled that data together, linked it, and did our analytics on top of that data. Once we, went through sort of our 4 eyes process with them, the outcome was that we put in place an analytics-driven approach that basically sent more sales calls to the best available agents who perform best for sales, and support calls were then routed generally to the longest available agent. What that resulted in was the fact that 50% of their sales calls actually started going to the top 10% of agents who were best at selling, and the rest of the calls were distributed to the rest of the agents. The agents who weren't as proficient at selling ended up taking more support calls, and that naturally, allowed for an optimization of the capabilities of the agent population by just leveraging the analytics. The end result was a 13% increase in their sales conversions and a fairly, significant ROI. The key thing to keep in mind here is, from a corporate perspective, our customer didn't change anything about their advertising strategies and their marketing strategies. They didn't change anything about their agent population and the agents that they actually had taking interactions. All of this happened by leveraging the data they already had in place, bringing that data together, and applying analytics to that data to improve the overall performance. So, in addition to the increase in conversion rates, which was obviously the key economic driver for the project, what the analytics also allowed them to do was rethink how they staff, reward, hire, and retain the agents in their contact center. So now they use the analytics to actually think through, which agents should I be training more? Which agents should I really focus on retaining? How do I create a reward system that incents the kind of behaviors that I want to actually improve the KPIs, the business outcome and business performance KPIs that I'm interested in optimizing? And then how do I think about, recruiting agents, and what are the attributes of the agents that perform best in my contact center environment, and how do I get more of them as I grow the contact center? So with that, I think we have another poll question, and Stefania, maybe I can hand it off to you to handle the poll question.
Yes, our poll question for our audience. How do you incorporate analytics into your customer experience today? Please check all that apply. Your options are: we use proactive analytics to help customers avoid having to contact us. We use predictive analytics to help the agent understand why a customer is calling. We use predictive analytics to optimize business outcomes by sending more interactions to agents who perform best. We use descriptive analytics to better assess our contact center performance. We plan to implement analytics in the next 12 months, or we do not use analytics today and have no immediate plans to implement it. And while our audience takes a minute to respond to that, I do want to remind you that our presenters will be answering questions during a Q&A session that is going to follow our presentation. I do encourage you to submit your questions to us using the interface on your PC, either during the presentation or during the actual Q&A. We'll be getting to as many of those questions as we can. Any that we're unable to get to will be archived, and I know our presenters today will be happy to answer them offline following the event. Also, as a reminder, our event is going to be archived, and each of you will be receiving information on how you can access the webinar tomorrow, so you can follow up on anything you might have missed or pass the information on to your colleagues. Let's go ahead and take a look at those poll results. It looks like 7.7% of our audience responded they will use proactive analytics to help customers avoid having to contact. 0% responded using predictive analytics to help the agent understand why a customer is calling. Another 7.7% responded using predictive analytics to optimize business outcomes by sending more interactions to agents that perform best. 23.1% of our audience responded we use descriptive analytics to better assess our contact center performance. 38.5% of our audience responded we plan to implement analytics in the next 12 months, and 23.1% responded we do not use analytics today and have no immediate plans to implement it. With that, the floor is yours again.
Thank you, Stefania. So super agents, one of the last things that Arnab talked about was the case study and how the contact center that used the analytics solution was able to derive better results from the same exact pool. Because, if we think back to that initial graphic that I used about customer journeys and how customers are not starting their journeys at the contact center, but have been through a series of steps before they get there, we're expecting our agents to be this super agent. We're expecting them to be able to handle all customer issues, regardless of channel, in a single contact. This is, something to dream about, but it's more than just dreaming about it. We have to build systems that support agents so that they can become super agents. So it's not just about a customer journey, it's about our agents' journeys as well. So think of the agents that you're hiring today as the agents and the supervisors that you're going to have in 2020. Not only what skills and training will they need, clearly that's important, but what tools should you be building now to help them increasingly support those very complex calls that they're going to get. And again, I think analytics in that case study that Arnab showed is one way that we do that. that we build a better system to support the agents who now are taking the more difficult, the more complex calls. So you may think, what the heck does the Internet of Things have to do with this? I've been out when I talk at user group meetings, at conferences, and I've been asking a question, what proportion, raise your hand if your company has an Internet of Things project underway, right? And a year ago, I might get 4 or 5 hands go up. Just last week, I had 20% of an audience raise their hands. And the thing that I say right after that is, if you don't know about it, try and find out, because broader data says that from a CIO perspective, 40 to 50% of companies are beginning to think about what does the Internet of Things mean to them. So what does it mean to you? What does it mean in terms of the contact center? Well, what it means is there are going to be more sources of data, more places where information tied together with your CRM data, with your contact center data, with your web data, will allow you to serve customers better. If you think back to the architectural diagram that Arnab showed, and the last thing he talked about was the RESTful APIs. This becomes really important as you go out and choose an analytics solution, because it's not just the systems and data that you have today that has to be brought in and analyzed and used to come up with next best actions or best agent to handle an interaction. It's increasingly going to be information coming from lots of different types of devices. One of the reasons I use this chart, it's not just about Fitbits anymore. I think, 2 or 3 years ago when people thought of the Internet of Things, they thought about, connected devices like health devices. But, there's a project that's going on right now that's sort of keeping track of the categories and industries where Internet of Things devices have been created. And it's already tracked over 4,000 types of devices in 73 different categories. The graphic there showing, what has become a fairly typical, the Nest type device, remotely managing via your mobile app the temperature in your house. But for those of us who travel a lot, having a chip in my suitcase would be very useful at times. When I'm standing there waiting for it to come down a baggage claim in Boston, and it is in fact still in Chicago, it would be good to know that with an Internet of Things. So again, this ties into analytics when we think about the kinds of information we as a business can have and manage to better manage the customer's journey and create a better customer experience for them. Beyond Internet of Things, a lot of discussion in 2016 about robotics and artificial intelligence. And I just like this example of JetBlue, who's using the device that you see on the left there. Now, it's a robot that runs around. If you look at the quote-unquote face of the robot, what's there is a live agent. And it's an agent who is able to be at the place where she or he is most needed at a moment in time. So to the right there, giving advice to a customer who walks in and says, before they even get in line, right, can see this robot and say, can I carry this bag on, right, yes or no? Or at a gate where a delay has just posted, but it's a pretty big gate and there are people all over the place, may not have heard the announcement, going around and telling people that we're going to be boarding in 10 minutes, there's been a slight delay. Again, how does this tie to analytics? For JetBlue, what these robots, these crew bots are about is putting customer service where it's needed at the moment that it's needed and not sort of oversupplying places where it's not needed. So you might have a gate where, there's just a sign up and until 15 minutes before flight time, you don't really need a live person there. Or you may have a situation where you can send 4 or 5 of these crew bots in to handle the situation. And what you have is a live person who, via analytics, knows the situation, is in touch in real time, and is able to, again, smooth that customer journey. I'm going to turn it back to Arnab for some summary statements before we head to Q&A.
Great. Thanks, Sheila. So, from our perspective, from a BroadSoft perspective, our recommendations to customers interested in leveraging analytics are really twofold. One is really think through the data that you already have today and unification of that data. I think one of the things that we're always pleasantly surprised when we have these conversations with our customers is there is a lot of data out there. And I think as customers dig in and sort of take a look, they themselves get surprised with how much data they're actually generating in all the applications that they've invested in through their customer service environment. So we then say, really, let's take out that data, let's link it together, let's house it in a flexible repository, and let's start using a set of tools that allow for descriptive analytics, predictive analytics against that data, focused on improving business outcomes in the contact center. And then the second piece, which is really the transformational piece, is really starting to manage your contact center as an analytics-driven contact center, one that is, again, focused on these KPIs, one that uses analytics to manage the agent population from a retention, hiring, rewarding perspective, and one that starts to treat customers as each being sort of unique and each having, each being in a specific spot in their customer journey, having a specific set of value for the enterprise, and distinguishing between those, taking advantage and exploiting those differences and making sure that there's an opportunity to tailor how customers are treated to their benefit as well as to the benefit of the enterprise and the contact center. Okay, so I think from here there is a next step slide, and so if folks are interested in hearing more about our solutions, feel free to call us. We are happy to do a free demonstration. We're happy to spend more time talking about how our analytics can be applicable in your specific environment, whether it's our descriptive analytics, our predictive analytics, or any other parts of our solution. We think there's significant opportunity to help contact centers really transform the way they operate, and we're eager and eager to engage with you.
Terrific presentation. Thank you guys very much. We'll now move on to our Q&A session. Before we do get to your questions, I want to remind everyone that you can still submit them to us using the interface on your PC. And also, again, as a reminder, each of you will be receiving a follow-up email with information on how to access the archived version of today's presentation. Now let's get to some of those questions. Okay, our first audience member asks, social media is managed in the marketing department in my firm. What can the contact center do to completely manage the customer journey?
Okay, so I will take that. I think, we've been talking about social media and the contact center for a long time, and very often what you hear is, well, that's managed by marketing, so I can't do anything about that, or we don't take those calls. I think what Arnab was talking about and the ability to combine data that's siloed in other places, social media is a great example. If the corporation thinks that marketing is the right place to be handling sort of the brand issues of the company, it can still make that data available to an analytics system so that it can be used and become part of the journey analytics information.
Great, thank you for that response. Okay, our next question. What new measurements will be required in the contact center as we incorporate more and more digital channels?
Okay, so this is Sheila again. So I think one of the things that we're finding is a measurement such as average hold time no longer is as valuable as it was in the past, right? Average hold time was a good measurement if your goal is to answer customers' question and get them off the phone as quickly as possible, right? When we have increasingly complex questions coming into the center, that no longer becomes an accurate measurement. And I think, some people say, well, throw it out. I don't say throw it out. I say we have to add some other types of measurements in addition to that, right? So one of them may be, how many channels did it take for this customer to get resolution? If we look via analytics and find out the customers are using 5 channels, what can we as a company do to help reduce that to 2 or 3? So that's one example of, digital channels require different types of measurements.
Thank you for that response. Okay, our next question. Does every contact center have to offer every possible channel of interaction?
Okay, I'm going to take that one too, but for darn sure, Arnab is taking the next one. So, if you think back to the dimension data information, and that so many channels are being used by companies now, that the average by the end of 2017 will be 9 different channels. So does every contact center have to offer every possible channel of interaction? Clearly it does come down to your vertical, your target market, right? If, for example, you have a very senior population and you're, renting mobility scooters, your need for every digital channel is not going to be the same as somebody who is doing something completely different that's targeted at millennials, right? I think the answer to the question also should be, though, to err on the side of more channels instead of fewer channels, right? Because even in that case of the seniors, right, with mobility scooters, increasingly that audience is also using things like chat, increasingly not wanting to make phone calls just like everybody else. And so I don't think you can assume, based on your target market, who will use what. So I think companies should be erring on the side of more channels and not less.
Terrific response. Thank you very much. Okay, our next question. What are some of the cross-system KPIs you're seeing people wanting to measure with this approach, and why?
Sure, I'll take that one. This is Arnab. So it goes back to a focus on business outcome KPIs, and Sheila mentioned earlier, things like average hold time or average handle time. These are not metrics that necessarily speak to a business outcome. And so what we typically see are folks looking at metrics like, so I'll look at it from the different business processes. From a sales perspective, it's things like revenue per call, or it's things like conversion rates. Now, typically, if you think about just sort of the math there, revenue per call is the amount of orders divided by the number of interactions, the revenue per interaction. And typically what happens is the numerator, the revenue number, comes out of some kind of an order entry system or a CRM application or equivalent. The number of interactions comes out of a contact center platform. So something as simple as revenue per interaction requires bringing together 2 different systems in order to do that calculation. In many cases, companies that are doing that today are doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of, pulling data from different systems. There's typically a very sort of skilled Excel spreadsheet person who's pulling this together, but it is a lot of work. In our system, because we pull these data sources together and link them, this becomes an automated report that you can generate sort of at will or schedule. So, revenue per call is one, conversion rate, which is number of sales, again, something that's typically captured in a CRM-like application over number of interactions, again, captured in a contact center application. Retention is another example of a cross-system KPI. Retention is number of customers that could decide to continue that service or using that product over the number of interactions that are specific to customers looking to cancel. Again, different systems capture that in the numerator versus the denominator. The last metric I'd highlight is first contact resolution. And again, this is an interesting metric because in a world where customers are interacting with the contact center across multiple channels, for a specific channel, if you don't see the entire journey, you might say, oh, this is the first time we got an email from this customer and we resolved it, so that must be a great first contact resolution. But the reality is they may have chatted with someone, they may have placed a phone call, they may have visited a store, they may have checked out the FAQ page. And so getting that first contact resolution measure to be accurate and really reflective of the journeys and the level of effort customers it takes a customer to resolve an issue, requires you to pull data together across the journey, across the different channels, across the different systems to really say, yep, this is the first time the customer tried to resolve this issue and we were able to resolve it on the first contact. And so that, again, that is another metric that is cross-system in terms of the data it needs, and it's a cross-system KPI that can help drive performance in the contact center.
Great, thank you so much. It looks like we have time for just another question here. Our audience member asked, what channels are best outsourced and what channels are better attended by your own people?
So this is Sheila. So I think that those decisions used to be made based on overflow or sort of type of call, tier 1 support versus tier 2 support. And I think what analytics allows us to do is to the combination of analytics and cloud allows us to send interactions to the right resource, right? So what does that mean? I think about using outsourcing more from a spiking point of view, right? You have a certain number of in-house agents that handle your regular flow, and then when things spike, you'll be using outsources, right? And so you can, to the way that Arnab described, send calls that are less likely to result in a close, in a revenue call, to send more support calls to those, to outsourcers. But I think the thing about cloud, how that enters into this is that just as, 15, 20 years ago, if the very large outsourcers would very often be using the same premises-based system that their customer was using. But only really big companies were able to do that, right? So, a huge company like an airline could say to an outsourcer, you have to buy our premises-based equipment, right? And they would go do it to support those calls. With cloud, it becomes much easier for a company to say, I use this cloud-based contact center. I want the agents who support my account in your outsourcing firm to also use that cloud-based contact center, web-based solution. And so the ability to route calls based on criteria that are uniform across both outsourced and in-house agents becomes much more possible in a cloud-based world. Do you have anything you want to add on that, Arnab?
No, I think you captured it. You captured it well. I mean, I think these are these are decisions that are very specific to the business processes that the enterprise has and how they think about handling customer interactions. And I would take it back to what are the KPIs that matter here, and which KPIs actually will help. Which strategy will help drive those KPIs, and that should be the where you start, and the staffing piece is kind of where you end up.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today for questions. I'd like to thank each of you for attending today's event, as well as our sponsor BroadSoft and Sheila and Arnab for joining us today. One last reminder, check your inbox tomorrow for additional information on the archived version of today's webinar. That's all the time that we have. Thanks again, and have a great day.